Hello everyone, and welcome to History of the Ancient World. Today we're journeying back to the dawn of civilization itself, to a land nestled between two mighty rivers, Mesopotamia. This isn't just any old history lesson. This is the story of where our world truly began. The name Mesopotamia, from the ancient Greek, literally means the land between the rivers, referring to the Tigris and the Euphrates. This fertile crescent, located in modern-day Iraq, Kuwait, and parts of Syria and Turkey, was the cradle where humanity took its first giant leaps forward. So, why here? Why did this specific patch of earth become the epicenter of civilization? The answer lies in the rivers. Each year, the Tigris and Euphrates would flood, depositing rich, fertile silt across the plains. This created incredibly productive farmland, but it was also unpredictable and required massive cooperation to control. To harness the power of these rivers, people had to work together. They developed irrigation, building canals and dikes to manage the water. This monumental effort required organization, leadership, and a shared sense of community. It was this very challenge that forged the first cities in human history. Our story begins with the Sumerians, around 4500 BCE. These weren't just the first people in Mesopotamia. They were pioneers in almost every aspect of what we call civilization. They built incredible city-states like Uruk, Ur, and Eridu. Uruk, at its peak, was the largest city in the world, a bustling metropolis with tens of thousands of inhabitants, massive walls, and monumental temples called ziggurats. These pyramid-like structures weren't just places of worship. They were the heart of the city's economic and political life, dedicated to the patron god or goddess who watched over them. The Sumerians believed their very survival depended on keeping the gods happy. But perhaps the Sumerians' most world-changing invention was writing. Imagine a world without the written word. No books, no emails, no street signs. That was the world before Sumer. Around 3400 BCE, driven by the need to keep track of goods, grain, and taxes, they developed a system of wedge-shaped marks pressed into wet clay tablets. We call this cuneiform. Initially, it was a simple system of pictures or pictographs representing objects, but over centuries, it evolved into a complex script that could represent sounds and abstract ideas. This breakthrough was revolutionary. It allowed them to record laws, literature, history, and scientific observations. The Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the world's first great works of literature, comes to us from these very clay tablets, telling a timeless story of a king's quest for immortality. The Sumerians were also brilliant innovators. They invented the wheel, not for transportation at first, but for making pottery faster and more efficiently. They developed the plow, which transformed agriculture. They were sophisticated mathematicians and astronomers, dividing time into units of 60, which is the reason we still have 60 seconds in a minute and 60 minutes in an hour. They charted the stars and planets, creating the zodiac and laying the groundwork for modern astronomy. Their society was complex, with a clear hierarchy of priests, kings, scribes, merchants, farmers, and artisans. They created the first known legal codes, establishing rules for contracts, marriage, and punishment. But the story of Mesopotamia is a story of constant change, of empires rising and falling. After the Sumerians, the Akkadians, led by the legendary Sargon the Great, swept in around 2334 BCE. Sargon is a fascinating figure. He created what many historians consider the world's first empire, uniting the disparate city-states of Sumer and Akkad under a single ruler. For the first time, one king controlled a vast territory, stretching from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean. The Akkadian Empire established a new model of governance, with a centralized bureaucracy and a standing army. They adopted and adapted Sumerian culture, including cuneiform, but spread it across a much wider area. However, like all great empires, the Akkadian dynasty eventually crumbled, paving the way for a Sumerian revival before another powerful group rose to prominence, the Babylonians. And when you think of Babylon, one name probably comes to mind: Hammurabi. Ruling around 1792 BCE, Hammurabi wasn't just a conqueror who built a vast empire. He was a brilliant administrator and lawgiver. He is most famous for the Code of Hammurabi, one of the most complete and well-preserved legal texts from the ancient world. Inscribed on a massive stone stele, it contained 282 laws, covering everything from property disputes and trade to family law and criminal justice. The principle behind it was an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, but it was more nuanced than that, with punishments often varying based on social status. This code provided a sense of justice and order that helped hold his empire together for generations. Under Hammurabi, Babylon became a magnificent city, a center of art, science, and literature. Following the Babylonians, the region saw the rise of the fearsome Assyrians. Hailing from northern Mesopotamia, the Assyrians were masters of warfare and siege technology. Starting around 900 BCE, they built a massive, well-organized, and often brutal empire. They were known for their iron weapons, horse-drawn chariots, and ruthless tactics, which they depicted in graphic detail on the walls of their palaces. They deported entire populations to prevent rebellions and used terror as a tool of control. But they weren't just warriors. The Assyrian king Ashurbanipal, for example, was a great patron of learning. In his capital city of Nineveh, he assembled a vast library of tens of thousands of clay tablets, collecting and preserving the knowledge of Mesopotamia. It's thanks to his library that we have copies of so many important texts, including the Epic of Gilgamesh. But Assyrian dominance couldn't last forever. A coalition of their enemies, including the Babylonians, sacked Nineveh in 612 BCE, leading to the rise of the Neo-Babylonian Empire. This period saw a final, glorious flourishing of Babylonian culture. King Nebuchadnezzar II, the most famous ruler of this era, transformed Babylon into one of the wonders of the ancient world. He is credited with building the legendary Hanging Gardens of Babylon, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, for his homesick wife. He also built the massive Ishtar Gate, a stunning structure covered in blue glazed bricks and depictions of dragons and bulls, which you can still see today in a Berlin museum. This was the Babylon of the Bible, the city that conquered Jerusalem and took the Jewish people into exile. The final chapter of ancient Mesopotamia's independent history was written by outsiders. In 539 BCE, Cyrus the Great and his Persian army conquered Babylon with very little resistance. Cyrus incorporated Mesopotamia into the vast Achaemenid Empire, the largest empire the world had yet seen. While Mesopotamian culture didn't disappear overnight, cuneiform was still used for centuries, and the cities remained important centers. The region was no longer the political heart of the world. It became a province in a much larger empire, ruled by foreigners. The age of the great Mesopotamian empires had come to an end. So what is the legacy of this incredible civilization? It's almost impossible to overstate. The Mesopotamians gave us the city, the wheel, writing, law, astronomy, and so much more. They grappled with the fundamental questions of life, justice, and humanity's place in the universe. Their stories, their innovations, and their struggles laid the foundation upon which all subsequent Western and Middle Eastern civilizations were built. Every time you check the time, look at a calendar, or read a book, you are touching a piece of their legacy. They were the original pioneers, the people who transformed scattered farming villages into a complex urban world. The rivers have changed course, and the great cities have crumbled to dust, but the echo of Mesopotamia still resonates today. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey back to the land between the rivers. It's a story that reminds us just how deep our collective roots go. If you enjoyed this exploration of ancient history, please give this video a like and subscribe to History of the Ancient World for more adventures into our fascinating past. Let us know in the comments what ancient civilization you'd like to see us cover next. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.